You guys, were you shocked to see these rent hikes in the middle of a pandemic?
You know, our office has received a few inquiries regarding escalation of rent during this time of emergency. We've been so focused on making sure that consumers have the ability to protect themselves and their families without worrying about this job loss and loss of income that's associated with some of these orders that were intended to protect them. And so we do monitor that, and we have been looking at that. Of course, when you see rent increases, you know, some may be egregious and some actually may constitute price gouging. You know, we have to look at these on a case-by-case basis, which we do. But one thing's important to note is that consumers are protected right now from any sort of evictions or foreclosures. There have been certain measures, either by executive order and certainly through the CARES Act, that have offered protection. And I'm pushing for further action to protect homeowners during this time.
Lauren, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, sorry. Yeah, and as far as like renters, we're seeing a lot of this with like big rental, complexes. What are some of those things that you are working on trying to get past to help in these situations?
Well, each case will be unique depending on if it is subsidized housing. Obviously, when we received word that there were some rent escalations related to subsidized housing, we worked with the Florida agency that oversees that, made sure that they gave guidance discouraging those rent increases. I think even some of those that had originally communicated they were going to raise rents have backed off that. They've said they're going to do the right thing. And so it depends. You know, if it's student housing, we absolutely have received word that universities are working with students. The universities have even received money to make sure they can accommodate and help students during this time, whether it's housing or other fees. And I know that many have announced how they're going to do that. If it's a private housing apartment complex or agency, it's really going to come down to looking at that specific contract. And again, there are protective measures in place right now related to eviction. And I would suggest that consumers, if they are having issues, if they are experiencing issues where their rent has increased and they've had a job loss or loss of income, you can go to our webpage at myfloridalegal.com. We've put together a comprehensive list of questions and answers that may be helpful specifically related to COVID-19.
Right, and I know the governor put a moratorium in effect to stop evictions and things of that nature for 45 days. Would these rent hikes fall under that moratorium, or is this like an additional aspect to that?
Well, again, it's going to depend on the specific entity that is attempting to raise rent during this time. What if it's a private contract, what that contract says, what that price increase was, whether that constitutes price gouging and would be illegal under Florida law. And there are two mechanisms where eviction has been postponed, and that's both federally under the CARES Act. There was a period of forbearance that was given, and additionally under the governor's executive order. The Supreme Court of Florida has also put a limit on what courts can do and what clerks can do to further an eviction process. So it's going to be really case specific. If Floridians have concerns, again, I would refer them to our webpage where there's frequently asked questions on myfloridalegal.com. They can always register a complaint with the appropriate agency, and we've listed that on the webpage. And we are working very hard. Whether it falls within the purview of our office or not, we're working very hard to make sure Floridians are protected and that their primary focus right now is protecting their health and the health of their families, and that they understand that government is working with them to make sure that during this uncertainty, during this what may be a time of job loss or loss of income, we're working to make sure that they're protected, and my office will continue to do that.
And do you think that there will be any prosecution? Do you plan on, any kind of prosecution for any of these people that have reached reached out to your office so far with these rent hikes?
Well, prosecution relates to a criminal offense, and generally speaking, we haven't seen any reports thus far of anything that would rise to the level of a criminal offense. I will tell you that when we're looking at certain complaints, it's going to be very fact specific as to whether it falls within the civil price gouging laws, and my office will continue to do that. But most specifically to some of these issues, we will work with and reach out to universities, with the other agencies that do have responsibility and oversight of this area, and make sure that they are working to protect Floridians. While it may not fall within my office or within my jurisdiction, as you know, consumer protection is one of my primary concerns, the primary mission of our office, and we will continue to work towards making sure Floridians are protected and they have the resources and the help that they need during this time.
Right, and for these individuals who are, living in these apartment complexes, and that are getting these, these notices saying that their rent is going up and they've been out of work, what would you say to them? Do you think that, what are your feelings on, these rents going up, in a time when people don't have jobs?
That's a great question, and obviously it's concerning to me, it's concerning to leadership, which is why you've seen action to forbear evictions. We don't want to see people feeling like they're going to lose their home, lose their shelter, while they're just trying to protect their health and safety. And that's why I've been pushing for more protections, not only a forbearance period, but stopping all proceedings relating to evictions so that they don't get notices, so that they don't get court documents relating to that next step, so that that is not at the primary focus right now for Florida families. What is their primary focus is protecting themselves and their children and their health. And we will continue to work towards making sure they know that we're working with them throughout this process.
And any message you have for these, these big rental companies that are, raising rent during this time, when so many people have lost so much already?
We as an office, and you'll see this on our resource page at myfloridalegal.com, when someone is experiencing job loss of income, and they are worried about their home and whether or not they can keep paying rent or keep paying a mortgage payment, our first advice is to go to that servicer or go to that landlord and tell them of the situation and ask for them to work with them. We have seen amazing stories around the state where landlords are doing just that. And so I would ask Floridians, go there first. Try and work something out with your landlord, with your service provider. And my advice to them is to understand the hardship of Floridians right now. Understand what so many people are going through that have lost their livelihood, and they are struggling not only to do what the government is asking them to do during this crisis, but to make sure they're living up to all those other responsibilities that they have in life, and to understand that and work with them financially. And I think we'll continue to see those doing that throughout the state of Florida. I would encourage that. I know that other leaders are doing the same. And if there are still concerns, reach out, get a resource, make sure that you offer a complaint, and we'll continue to try and work to make sure we're protecting Floridians.
Right. And have you guys reached out to any of these apartment complexes that you've gotten complaints from?
Absolutely. In fact, as we receive complaints and we review them for action and determine whether or not it falls within the price gouging statutes, we always, even if it doesn't, we always try to reach out and help consumers. We have been able to secure hundreds of thousands of dollars in refunds for consumers, even when we might not have price gouging issues, but just because it is the right thing to do, and we've been working since this crisis started, and we will not let up. We'll continue to do that through the duration.
Perfect. All right. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, ma'am.
All right. That was good for me. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Great to talk with you.